All right, well, thanks for joining us. My name is Dan Meyer. I'm editor-in-chief at RCR Wireless News. Thanks for joining us at our 2016 Analyst Predictions Day here in Austin, Texas. I am joined by James Brehm, who's the founder and technology evangelist for James Brehm & Associates. Hey, James, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, we're going to touch a bit on the interesting and exciting IoT M2M space. So maybe start off with, I guess, like one of the topics we want to touch on was the financial opportunities there, at least when it comes to IoT and M2M. I mean, obviously, this space has been around for a long time. People have been investing in it. There's different segments have a lot of M&A activity going on. But I guess maybe start off with just getting your input or your insight into kind of where you see the market today, and perhaps what you see is maybe some of the challenges when it comes to the M&A and the mergers and the acquisitions and the financial opportunities there for that space, maybe looking towards 2016. So what do you see there?
Yeah, well, there's really three reasons that the companies join this space. It's either to make money, to save money, or to maintain compliance. I like to say, stay out of jail, right? And a lot of companies have put money into this space. But one of the things that's interesting to note that venture funding seems to be tough to get for some of the industrial type companies, but pretty easy to get for the consumer type companies.
I mean, and what is that? Because it does seem like too. Like, I think we talked a little bit off camera. I mean, it does seem like the industrial is kind of where the money could be made, where the consumer market is. That's a tough nut to crack. I mean, there's so many companies involved there.
Yeah, I think in the near term, it is the place where companies are going to see the most benefit because it's the most mature area. Right, people have been doing this M2M or telematic stuff for years to save money. So there's a lot of benefit around there. But I think part of that might also be because the venture market is maturing just a little bit in that space. So these exits are taking a little bit longer. If you take a look at some of the firms out there, I think Andreessen Horowitz is one of the companies that put out a report that basically said, where exits had historically been at the 5-year, they're pushing back to the 8-9 year time frame, so companies can actually benefit more from that. But also, there have been some things that happen that have not been beneficial to getting venture in there. With Corky took on $185 million in funding, and that is not a success story. Yeah. Right. So
that scares a few people away. I'm sure that's one of those warnings right there for people. So.
But we see a lot of private equity guys getting into the mix, right, with these mid-sized and some decent sized deals that they're rolling up. They're really looking at companies that really have a high EBITDA right now. That's tough to find high EBITDA, recurring revenue and strong management. And when they find it, they buy them. So it's almost like these private equity firms have moved down the chain a little bit and relaxed some of them instead of going after the multi-billion-dollar acquisitions. They're in the $100 million acquisition phase right now in this space, and there's a lot of angels playing in the space as well from a venture standpoint. But the corporate strategic guys seem to be pretty active in this space. And I think it's because some of these big companies really don't have a fully baked solution yet. The Ciscos and the Oracles of the world are talking about what they're doing, right? And they're playing a big role with the analytics aspect of it, or just providing access, right, and selling gateways and internet connectivity. But how do they play from an end-to-end standpoint? How's Cisco done it historically for years, right? They go in there and they roll up a bunch of really good companies and integrate them, and I think that's what we're starting to see now. So.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because it does seem like this market has been around for a long time under various names, so it's telematics, M2M, whatever it's been. But it does seem like it's interesting that it's still, a lot of these big companies don't have quite their right footing yet. And looking to 2016, it seems like that's got to be a big part of this, is because it is getting so much attention, and people seem to want to really get involved with IoT. I mean, every conference we go to, it's like IoT is a big part of this stuff now. That seems like that's going to be the challenge of 2016, is getting everybody's ducks in a row, I guess, and really getting a full end-to-end platform out there is going to be a big challenge, and getting the money behind it to do that's going to be a big part of that.
Yeah, it is. I just got off an airplane from Dubai last week, where I was at Cisco's Smart City Conference, with a big focus on IoT. And companies like IBM and Schneider and Rockwell are giving their keynotes there, and it's like all the big companies know they need IoT. They're just not real sure exactly what that means to them. And I don't know, it sounds like they're mainly committed from we know we have to do it. So they're bought in there. Okay, what's the next step to getting to a full IoT solution for these guys? So
I mean, that's maybe for the next topic too. I know we want to talk, kind of, I guess, what the next killer app might be, sort of thing there. And obviously, when you think of IoT, personally, I don't think of it as being like a specific application. For instance, I mean, it seems like it's more like a market segment or something might be the part there. But I guess as you look kind of towards 2016, what do you see as kind of, I guess, driving that interest there, and what companies are looking to really tap into in terms of getting some growth and traction.
Yeah, so it's been said that oil is the new gold, and you know, when you take a look at it, it really is. And with oil prices down though, historically like they are, I think some of these big oil and industrial companies that are pushing petroleum around are going to look at IoT solutions, not only you know, from a transportation standpoint, which they've been doing fleet management transportation for a long time, but you know, I guess from the oil well all the way to the pump, and to the consumer. So we're going to see a lot of that. And if oil is the new gold, right, then water's the new oil. And I live in South Texas, and we had a lot of water problems over the last couple of years. I mean, I would hate to live in Southern California where the cost of water is there. I mean, so I think that's where we're going to see a lot of activity over the near term is going to be in those industrial applications where we're looking at resource monitoring and resource management.
So a lot of metering applications, things like that's where it's going to be big.
Absolutely. Now, you know, I'm not discounting, you know, all the buzz and hype around wearables and consumer products and things like that. I think we are ultimately going to see some tremendous benefits there. But I think that we're overestimating how quickly we're going to get there and how hard it is to actually get these things correct. You're right. You said IoT is not really a market. No, it's truly not a market in itself. It's a lot of disjointed things, and we've been actually mapping an ecosystem out where we've got about 45 different characteristics that we're looking at and trying to figure out. There's over 1,200 participants that claim that they have an IoT and legitimately claim they have an IoT solution.
They think at least they do.
Yeah. And legitimately they do. There's over 2,000 that claim that they're, but you know, a lot of these guys don't legitimately have a claim for it, but there's pieces of it. For any one solution out there in the smart city space, there's probably 10, 15 vendors involved. So it's very complex. There are bit pieces that are going together, and it's whoever builds that right ecosystem is going to be the guy that wins in the near term and makes it easy for their customer.
And that seems like that's really then geared towards maybe some of the bigger players out there who have the opportunity to really do that, because you know, for a company like in the oil space or water meter, I mean, they're going to look probably to a larger company who can really provide a pretty solid end-to-end solution. So it would seem like that those bigger companies, like you mentioned earlier, like a Cisco or something like that, really has probably the better chance to really make some inroads here. And again, whether it's rolling up some more stuff to complete it up, but it seems like they're going to be kind of maybe in charge of really where this kind of all leads to.
Yeah, I think so, and also the systems integrators, because it is so many different systems that IoT is systems of systems. It's networks of networks, and it's applications of applications. So it's going to be these complex guys that get involved. We're seeing right now that the big SIs are struggling with it because it goes across so many of their functional areas. It's about tying business intelligence to the end application. It's about doing some of that analytics out there in the cloud or in the fog, as Cisco likes to put it, and instead of pushing data all the way across the network, and trying to figure out what are the best analytics engines, what are the best tools to use, what are the best companies, who are the best of breed companies to put together, and they're starting to really enter the game. But those smaller systems integrators, the companies of 15 to 200 people, they're really involved in creating these unique solutions. But the one place that everyone has failed so far, and I think we need to get into that space, is in the user interface. Making it simple and easy to use, as opposed to having to develop new dashboards and new applications and things like that. I mean, people want intuitive devices, right? They want to be able to see stuff and interact with it really quickly and easily. It's the iPhone experience.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's the key for 2016. Maybe that is the killer app, is the easy UI. Maybe that's what's really going to kind of drive greater adoption. Because again, you're right. I mean, with these IT departments at these companies, they have to bring something else on board. They want to make sure they know what they're dealing with. It's easy to work with, and
yeah,
that's going to be key for that. So.
And the big mobile app guys are finally starting to get into this space where they're bringing some of the learnings that they've had over the years of the smartphone app and bringing the IoT app to the tablet, to the PC, to the touchscreen, to the smartphone.
Yeah.
Guys like Solstice Mobile, for example, are 250 coders that really focus on what the user's experience looks like. They're really jumping into the space and embracing it hard.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too. You kind of mentioned the fact that it does seem like that the consumer part of IoT is the part that gets all the attention, and even the VC part of it gets all the attention. But it does seem like the industrial part of this is really where the money's going to be at least in the short term. But it does seem like, people get so caught up in, wanting to have this next great thing, this, something to work with the iPhone, and that could be commercials and things like that. Yep. But it does seem like, at least in the short term or even midterm, that it's going to be really about industrial IoT, which really started getting a lot of traction this year. In 2015, it seemed like that was getting a lot more attention. It seems like 2016 is really going to be the year where IoT, industrial IoT, is going to be kind of the big thing.
I think so.
Going forward,
absolutely.
From money position there. So
absolutely.
And this all kind of leads into maybe the third topic too, looking at kind of the I guess the network side of things, because again, this all is going to at some point have to run across a network, whether it's a Wi-Fi network, a cellular network, whatever it's going to be. And it seems like with IoT, the wireless space is always used to having new acronyms, new little things that have been popping up over the years. And it seems like with IoT, we've got more of these things coming up now with Sigfox and Ingenue and different things that you were talking about earlier. But I guess as we look at that part of it, and that seems like the confusing part of it, because the technologists guys who are having to actually implement this stuff have to deal with all this and make the right decision. Because if you make the wrong decision, you end up like a carrier who's had to run too many networks or something like that, and that becomes a bad situation too. So I guess as you look at that part of it, how is that going to evolve over 2016?
I think sometimes the network gets a little bit too much credit for making all this thing happen, and we need to look at the network as just another tool.
Sure.
And my dad taught me growing up, you use the right tool for the right job. If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So if all I have is a cellular network, it looks like I have to run everything over a cellular network. But is that truly the case? If I'm a mega carrier that has Wi-Fi assets, how do I integrate my Wi-Fi assets to my cellular assets? How do I integrate my wireline assets with my Wi-Fi and my cellular assets? How do I integrate low power and some of the stuff going on out there?
Yeah.
There are a lot of assets out there that are smart enough to be connected. They have microprocessors in them. All they need is a gateway and a connection of some sort, right? Companies like Sigfox are coming into the States where they're talking about, we aren't trying to displace the cellular guy. We're trying to complement them. There's stuff out there that's too dumb and too ubiquitous for them to cover, right? We need to get down to the 10-cent range. We're not going to get there with cellular modules. We're not going to get to the 10 cents a year type of connection. But we are going to get cheaper connections and be able to do this. I mean, cost has been a factor historically. We're seeing sunsetting of networks and discussions of sunsetting of networks, and we have a new spectrum auction coming up, right? Companies always need more spectrum to run the consumer devices and the consumer plays, but at the same time, they're trying to figure out what my scale is going to look like, or what their scale is going to look like as they grow non-consumer applications, as they're looking at these industrial applications. How much more spectrum do I need? And that's anybody's guess as to how fast that spectrum is going to grow. So I see places where low power wide area networks from LoRa, the LoRa Alliance, are going to be nice private networks. Maybe we marry them in amongst each other and they become public networks, but they're really good for private networks, for doing things like just oil and gas and restricted geographies. I see LTE category 1 as being a first step, but it doesn't solve signaling issues. Category 0 and category M ultimately will do that. But we're looking at some time before we get modules out there that are Cat 0 and Cat M for carriers to be able to really drive the costs down. So in the meantime, what's the solution? It's probably going to be some of this low power stuff as well.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to wait. I mean, consumers aren't going to wait for the need. Industrial guys are not going to wait.
Yeah.
They're going to deploy. Look at the oil and gas fields today.
Yeah.
They're doing stuff on private networks of their own, and a lot of it's licensed private networks. That's very cost prohibitive. So coming in with some unlicensed private networks reduces the cost. But if you can use public networks or hybrid networks, that really reduces the cost for them and makes it beneficial to them. And that's really what we need to do is drive those, drive that cost out of the equation and turn it into let's use the best technology for the right job. Ingenu is doing something really unique, and you mentioned those guys earlier.
Yep.
And one of the things that we're seeing those guys come up with is where they've got the private networks already installed across the country, and now we're looking at doing an installed base of taking those private networks and turning them into a public network. That reduces the cost and the complexity for deployment.
Yeah.
But cellular networks that have cost billions and billions and billions of dollars being replaced by these low power networks that only cost a couple $100 million to deploy. That's fun stuff.
That's compelling. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for operators, 'cause like you said, because all these operators are looking to sunset their legacy stuff and take some cost out of the networks. And the thought of them having to then set up another whole network, especially using licensed spectrum, which is expensive, is tricky because they want to usually save that licensed spectrum for their high value consumer market, and they don't want to throw that spectrum at IoT stuff because there's not much return left. Yeah. So obviously that's where the licensed really seems like a great idea because even the licensed in the consumer space is always tricky because of the quality of service. But when you look at IoT, you probably don't need perhaps that high level of quality of service that you would need in the consumer space. So it does seem like a license could be a great way to reduce costs. And you get these very, like you said, great companies coming out with new technologies and low power stuff that could really be a way to tap into kind of the new opportunities there for bringing the cost down.
And the connectivity piece, that's a race to zero.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so that's the difficult part there. But and then I guess as you look at the networks themselves, as you said, kind of the sunsetting of the networks too. I know AT&T is talking about doing that in 2017. They're taking their GSM network down, and it just seems like we're getting to the point too where the GSM module costs are coming down to a nice low price point. But now we're getting rid of that, so that's going to be definitely open the door up for some of these new.
But LTE and HSPA are following those price points down too.
Yeah.
So
I mean, do you expect those networks to ever be able to get? At least the modules for those networks ever get down to what we saw with GSM? Is it just a matter of time before that happens, or do you think that something else will step in and we won't have to worry about LTE modules getting down to that price?
No, I think LTE will get down to that price point for maybe not the consumer grade LTE that's going into a handset or a tablet, but LTE category M or category 0. Sure, I do see those. And recently Verizon said showed a module. The Verizon exec held up a module and they said, This is our secret bullet, right? This is where we're going to drive costs down. Yeah. So.
And it seems like too with those bigger companies, because you mentioned earlier the fact that if you can tap into your Wi-Fi assets and your wireline assets and your cellular assets, some of the bigger carriers like an AT&T or Verizon, they do seem to be the ones who have a pretty diverse portfolio of things that they can really tap into, and they've kind of been leading this move towards IoT, at least from a cellular carrier point of view. They've really been driving it and seeing a lot of traction. I mean, AT&T's been doing great with their telematics business and stuff, driving growth there. So it does seem like those guys, it could be pretty well positioned in 2016 to really continue that growth where the smaller guys perhaps are still, how are they going to be able to benefit at all from, or is it going to be a partnership type of thing for those guys to
smaller
get
carriers?
Yeah, like someone like a T-Mobile or a Sprint, for instance, who perhaps don't have the diverse Wi-Fi or wireline assets in-house. If they're looking to kind of break into the IoT space, that's going to need more than just a cellular connection. Do they need to kind of partner with someone like Ingenu, or is that going to be kind of there?
They do need to partner, but those partnerships can be a lot of the stuff. I mean, we're talking a lot about just connectivity. Yeah. Connectivity is just one piece of this, and actually that's the piece that seems to be the race to zero, right? Okay. Because connectivity always gets cheaper and easier to get a hold of. Okay. So maybe those guys are partnering with guys like Amazon, right? Moving up the stack. A value add kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. And I see a lot of moves there and a lot of plays there where they can partner with a Microsoft Azure. They can partner with an Amazon and move up the stack. Partner with analytics companies. Provide value-added services to their customers. Okay, so they shouldn't be looking so much at that connection part of it, because like you said, that is definitely the race to the cheapest. But yeah, they can definitely partner with some of those bigger, and then maybe those companies might be open, because I know obviously AT&T and Verizon,
it seems like they're trying to do a lot of their own stuff in-house, and they might be trying to do it themselves, where, with someone like a T-Mobile or Sprint or even a regional carrier.
And we have all the MSOs out there that are deploying Wi-Fi assets as we speak.
Yes.
That are looking for partners to play with as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. What position are they going to play? Because again, they do have that Wi-Fi stuff out there. I mean, they may not have the maybe longer-term expertise in the cellular side of things, but again, with their Wi-Fi assets and they've got a lot of cable on the ground and stuff, it seems like they could really be a player if they wanted to. I mean, they've got their own issues battling each other. But.
Yeah. If I look at this next spectrum auction, I think AT&T is probably going to be the big player. Verizon has the opportunity to do it, but are they? They're carrying a fair amount of debt after shedding some of their assets. So maybe they're not going to be as big a player as AT&T. But look at Comcast. They got a war chest right now because of the failed merger with Time Warner. They could come in and be really disruptive in this space. And now you got Altice coming in from France as well, doing some roll-ups. It could be interesting. And of course, don't leave out guys like Google.
They've in the past they've participated. I mean, obviously when they did the 700 megahertz auction, they were kind of there mostly just to make sure that there was an open access thing. I think for the most part. But you're right. I mean, at this point now, maybe they've seen that they've put a lot more of their since 2008 to now. They've definitely become more of a mobile focused company with Wi-Fi and doing all the different stuff too, and Google Fiber going into town. So they're definitely building a kind of a nice base to really become. If they throw some spectrum on top of that, some licensed spectrum.
With all the Wi-Fi stuff that Comcast has already done, I anticipate that they're going to be a player in this spectrum auction. So,
do you think there'll be a long-term? I'm not saying obviously they'll probably participate, but do you think they actually then take that spectrum and do something with it? Because they have a history of participating in auctions and then playing around and then eventually selling it off. But do you think that at this point, because again, 600 megahertz spectrum is pretty appealing. I mean, if they can get some of that,
I think
coverage-wise,
I think that they really want to make that move now, away from just the consumer to also playing with their business customers. And that's where, we talked about the industrial IoT. Comcast has got that same footprint, now with, if they participate in the auction, where they can go after some of these business customers and really make an impact. So.
Yeah, I'm interested to see. Once that list comes out of participants, it'll be interesting to see who's going to play in that too. But and then one final question too, going back.
Was that the 18th? So just a couple days away.
Yeah, it should be. We're at 15th. Yeah, exactly. So it's coming up. So we'll see when that comes out. That'll be interesting to kind of parse out who's who, and then, and again, you get all these companies who are bidding for other companies too, and trying to see who's all attached. But that'll be interesting to see who's part of that. So, and then I guess one final thing, looking at the technology aspect again, we kind of mentioned that there's different technologies coming out. I mean, at this point, who do you see as being the technology that might win out? I mean, are we still too early in this process to think that who might get a leg up? Because it does seem like, we talked earlier about this, and every 6 months it seems like a new technology pops up that promises to be better than anything else out there. I mean, are we still in that process of trying to weed through what could be the technology and who might potentially do well here?
So I always make this statement. The market's big today, and it's going to be huge in the future, right? Predicting a winner, everybody can win. Right. So I'm not gonna bet.
Oh, I thought I'd get you for sure to give me something.
Who cares? It's big. It's going to be huge. We're all going to win.
Yeah, I guess if we're all winners, I guess that's what matters, right? We'll all get a nice participant award and we'll all be fine. So, but I mean, it could be, again, I know a lot of technology guys are looking and they see all these different options out there. And I'm sure for them, they're like, all these different acronyms. What am I going to pick? I don't know which one does what. Because again, Bluetooth is out there, Zigbee is out there. The things that have been out there for a long time, but.
I think it's going to be the guy that can marry and have a single pane of glass and manage Zigbee, Z-Wave, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, cellular, satellite, and low power, right, through a single pane of glass. And that's the main thing because, these large mega enterprises, even consumer applications, they need it all, right? They need it all. If I'm thinking about a big yellow heavy industrial equipment company, they're going to connect some of their stuff by cellular, right? They're going to connect some of it by Wi-Fi. They're going to connect some of it by satellite because it's remote. And what do I do when I'm down a mine shaft? I'm going to have to use point-to-point or proprietary or something like that. I saw a guy talking about using cellular to connect their vehicles and utilizing Zigbee as collision avoidance in unmanned vehicles.
Sure, right. And I mean, some of the options out there, that can work too, you're right. So I guess we shouldn't focus yet on the technology part of it. It seems like the UI is going to be the real key of this.
Yeah.
Someone who can actually marry it all together in an easy, seamless way.
Absolutely.
That's the winner.
Yeah.
You find that company, you invest in that company. That's the company.
Yeah.
That's the one you want to go with.
Absolutely. Yep.
That sounds good. That sounds good. Hey, James, we definitely appreciate the insight on this today. Obviously, 2015 was a big year for IoT. 2016, it seems like big to huge. So we're just moving up and up on that. So hopefully we'll see some good traction there, and maybe we'll get some stuff nailed down in that space. And we'll talk again a year from now and see what happened, and kind of look towards 2017 at that point.
Sounds great.
Sounds great. Thanks, James again for the time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching.